This is when I really think about it, or your network is so important. The people that you're coming up with matter more, and making as many relationships and connections as you possibly can, because that is often, I hate to say it, but that's what's going to push you over the edge. There's a lot of really talented actors, but it's like I can just say from the directing perspective, like I need actors that I can trust when I'm on set. Like I need to know that you're gonna, be prepared if I'm casting you, especially if like sometimes you don't even know the conversations that are happening behind closed doors. Like I may have really fought for you.
Hey there, it's Ginny.
And I'm Monica.
And this is Hitting Her Mark,
a podcast for women in the arts, actors, filmmakers, artists who are passionately chasing their creative dreams,
while juggling the beautiful chaos of caring for those they love.
We're here to share stories, insights, and inspiration, proving that you can hit your mark without compromising what matters most.
So if you're ready to make your creative dreams a reality, let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Hitting Her Mark. All right, today's guest is someone who truly does it all, Vanessa Matsui. She's a Toronto-based Japanese-Canadian director, actor, and writer known for blending dark comedy with a lot of heart and not shying away from taboo. She's directed across some of Canada's biggest shows, Saint-Pierre, Murdoch Mysteries, Children Ruin Everything, and Son of a Critch. And she's even stepping back in front of the camera as an actor while continuing to direct. Her series, How to Fail as a Pop Star, not only made waves at Cannes Series, but also took home the Canadian Screen Award for Best Web Series in 2024. Her feature debut, Midnight at the Paradise, is now streaming on Paramount+, and it's already picked up nominations at festivals like Austin Film Festival and Cinequest. Vanessa is also the creator and star of Ghost BFF, a critically acclaimed web series that earned multiple Canadian Screen Award nominations and built a global following with millions of views. And on top of all that, she spent over 2 decades acting in film, TV, and theater, with credits like Schitt's Creek and The Hot Zone Anthrax. Please welcome Vanessa Matsui. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Hitting Her Mark. Today's guest is a true multi-hyphenate who has spent 2 decades as an actress, appearing on a number of notable TV series that we all know and love. She's also a writer and creator. She created a very successful web series, Ghost BFF, which we're definitely going to get into. I'm excited to talk about that. And she's a busy director working on some of the most well-known Canadian TV series, including Murdoch Mysteries, Saint-Pierre, and Son of a Critch. So much to cover. Thank you so much for joining us today, Vanessa. Please welcome everyone, Vanessa Matsui. So I'm just curious, where did this artistic path begin for you?
I was one of those kids that, I was a true theater kid. For as long as I can remember, I had always wanted to be an actor. It started when I was like a really little kid. I think I saw my aunt took me to Cats, and at the beginning of Cats, all the cats go into the audience and like play with your hair, and I was like, "What is?" And I was really little, and so I didn't understand. And my aunt was like, "No, these are just don't be scared. These are just people pretending to be cats." And I was like, "Wait, what?" That is a job. That is awesome. That is what I would like to do. So yeah,
Yes,
I was
absolutely.
very singular, even as a little kid. Like I remember going to back in the day, the billboard at Theatre Ontario, trying to find auditions because nobody in my family's came from the business, so I really didn't know. And yeah, that is the Cats. That is the inception.
And then what was that transition for you? Like, did you start so did that compel you to go to theater school? And was it at Concordia? Is that where you went to theater school?
Yeah.
So what was that experience like for you?
It was amazing. It was, I went to this pretty conservative, high achieving high school that was very not artsy. And so when I got to theater school, it was like, it was so fun. And, our classes were movement classes and dance classes and voice classes. And it was so special. And it was really small. Like, I feel like there was only 8 kids in my year, maybe. So
Oh, wow.
your class was really small. Like we were in these studios on the Loyola campus. Yeah, getting to study acting. It was awesome.
How
Yeah,
is your family with that? Were they like supportive? Were they trying to convince you, coming out of this highly academic high school, were they like, the world is your oyster? And you're like, I want to go to theater school.
I'm a mom, and I do have to give my parents a lot of credit. They were super supportive of this. I think they were really proud of me. They didn't go to university. So they just wanted me to go to university. I just needed to get this undergrad. They didn't really care what it was in. It was like they were just happy I was going to university.
you get into theater school, you love like the experience of the voice classes and movement and all this. It's like going to camp. It's amazing. What happens after that? I know you do some improv, and I know that that's sort of part of your earlier stuff. So talk me through that. Like, was theater the plan? Like, when did that transition to on-screen stuff happen as well?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super successful at theater school. Like, I was never cast in anything. I was never, I'd go to the play auditions, but how they say that you connect the dots going backwards. In hindsight, it was actually really great because I started my own theater company and,
Yes.
learned how to produce pretty early on because of that. And that's right. I then started studying improv. There was this amazing theater in Montreal called Theater St. Catherine. It was a guy, Eric Amber, who had studied under Keith Johnstone, who is from the Loose Moose Theater in Calgary, but some of like he wrote an incredible book that I recommend, Improv for Storytellers, that I recommend any actor take and or read. So I started going to Sunday night improv classes and doing improv almost 3 times a week. Met
Wow.
friends, and we started doing this like a completely serialized, improvised sitcom called The Bitter End, which we then turned into like one of the world's first ever web series, kind of before people even had like internet. And yeah, and then I also discovered Meisner around the same time, and I was studying under Jacqueline McClintock. And that's where I also met a lot of like my core people. So it was really improv and with Jacqueline. And that's who I kind of continue to work with to this day.
I mean, looking at your IMDb, you've been working as an actor pretty consistently since like 2004, 2005, building your credits, in day player roles, but then you start to get more substantial responsibility as you go on. For example, shows like Seed, Lost Girl, Shadow Hunters. What did you learn from those opportunities where you had to carry more of a responsibility on set than, just the day player role, which has its own challenges?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's funny. And I don't know if you both find this as well. Like being a day player is actually harder. There's a lot of
Yes.
pressure on that one line that you have. I remember my first ACTRA credit, and I had like dreamed of this. This is all I wanted. I wanted to join ACTRA, and I wanted to be working in TV. And it was on this show called Naked Josh. And I was so nervous. Like I was so scared and nervous. And I think I was putting so much pressure on myself for like whatever the one line that I had to deliver. And then I actually found like when I was a series regular, I found that kind of easy compared, like I didn't, just because you feel so much more a part of the family and you really get into this rhythm. I knew everybody on set, so I felt really comfortable. We also had really great directors, and I really loved my showrunner. So in a way, I actually found like the more responsibility I had, the easier it got and the less nervous I was.
Yeah. And just to add to that point, a lot of the times with a day player role, right, we put so much pressure on ourselves because we've got one line to get right. And if you can't get that one line right, we say things about ourselves, right? Like we make these meanings, and you're also coming in and you don't know anybody. You don't really know how the director works. You don't know how the other castmates work. So you're kind of like on your little island here trying to like fit in. So that extra awkwardness adds to your performance versus, yeah, when you're on set every day and you kind of know everybody, you know that if you flub a line, you know how to kind of correct. If there's a line that's not flowing, you can go and say, hey, what do you think if we kind of change it to this or whatever? You have that ease on set.
Yeah, 100%. I always, now that I'm directing, I always try to protect my day players because I remember, how hard it's stressful. It's really hard. At least that's been my experience. It's a little easier when you're, part of the family.
Of course, of course.
100%.
So you kind of mentioned that not being cast in a lot of the plays in theater school sort of pushed you into producing your own work. Did you feel the same way when you were transitioning into TV film?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like I feel like I would never get cast. Like I've never played a lead part in a film or a TV series that, like, to this day I would love to do that one day still, but it really did push me. Like that was really the inception to creating Ghost BFF. Like I had this idea. Monica, I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking before, but it was like I wanted to prove to the industry that I could be a leading woman. And I thought that if I created Ghost BFF and showed them that I could be number one on the call sheet, that I could lead a show. And of course, like that did not happen. But all these other things happened that I'm so grateful for, that I learned so much by creating that show and, sort of starting to cut my teeth as a director on that show and understanding, writing. And anyway, so it's like my goal was to act, but all these other skills came out of it. And I'm very grateful because it's a huge part of how I've been able to do what I'm doing today.
So, just to catch our audience up, the series follows two best friends, one of whom is dead, and is a dark comedy exploring grief and female friendship. You wrote, directed, and starred in the series. It won a number of awards. It was also nominated for 6 Canadian Screen Awards, including Best Digital Series. You received 2 nominations for your acting in that web series as well. Can you describe the creative process of building an indie web series from the ground up? I mean, I literally just recently went through something, not a web series by any means, but I cannot believe the amount of work that goes into it. So I'd love for you to share with our audience, financing, writing, directing yourself, getting it seen. What was that process like for you? My God, you must have learned so much.
And then acting in it as well, right? Like you
Yes.
did it all.
Yeah, I mean, I had tons of help. There were a lot of people involved, and it took a really long time. When, the first incarnation of it was actually like a short play that I did in my friend's basement. And I feel like somebody mentioned at the showcase that it felt very cinema and that I should think of making it into a short film. And I was like, actually, that's a great idea. And at the time, there was still Bravo Fact. So I applied for a Bravo Fact to try, and I, formatted it to look like TV and to try to make it a short film. And then I didn't get funded. And then somebody, I feel like people would always just say stuff to me. I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And then somebody was like, maybe make it into a web series. Yeah, I think that, and because the IPF was brand new and they were like, there's these new funds and they're looking to fund web series. Why don't you try applying for that? And I was like, that's a great idea. And
Yeah.
applied and obviously didn't get that either. I had a great producer, Katie Nolan, and her and I were just, we're starting out. We were really hungry and we just kept trying. Sort of didn't accept no for an answer. I felt pretty strongly about it. The reason why I had written it was also because my childhood best friend had almost died of suicide. And I felt like, especially at that time, like this is a long time ago, everybody, this was almost, oh my God, like 9-10 years ago now when we first started developing it. People weren't really talking about mental health and suicide the way that they are now. Like Bell Let's Talk didn't exist at the time. So I kind of had a fire inside of me. I was like, no, I feel like this is going to be addressing suicide and mental health in this comedic way, which I think a lot of people didn't understand because it sounds very dark, but I thought it was a good idea. Anyway, so.
Well, yeah. Well, in those dark moments, you need the comedy.
Yeah.
100%.
That's when you need it most.
Yeah. And even when I was helping out my friend, I went to go spend some time with her, and I remember all she wanted to do was watch the Mindy Project. Like we had all the curtains down. It was so dark. She was so sad. And all she, like the DVDs that we would just go through
CNBCs.
after seasons of the Mindy Project. So I was like, yeah, people want to watch something funny that they can relate to. And anyway, so yeah, Katie and I kept applying for funding. And then somebody, Anna Serrano, who came on board as an executive producer, suggested the Telus Fund. And at that time, the Telus Fund was looking to explore projects for the web that were dealing with mental health that were drama. Like, I guess up until that point, they had only done kind of docu-style. And Elizabeth Friesen, I will never forget her because she was my first yes. We didn't get production funding, but she gave us development money. So she was like, you're not ready to shoot this. She was like, you're not ready to shoot this. Why don't you and Katie spend the summer and develop it? So it was the first time in my life where I was paid as a writer. And we kind of hacked out the series together. And then tell us after we delivered all the scripts, they greenlit us for funding. And so I think I made season 1, like I want to say $100,000, maybe $200,000.
Wow. That's amazing. And so with your writing, did you have a mentor? Did you take did you take courses after that or before that?
Nope.
You just did it.
Yes, I now can't believe it. I did. So after, but I had always been doing improv. Like, and also I think, sometimes actors, we don't give ourselves enough credit, like how much you're softly learning just by, the bazillion of scripts that you have to read every time you get sent an audition. I think because I had so much experience improvising this serialized sitcom every single week, like in my 20s, that I kind of sort of innately understood the beats of it. And I had read a couple books, like I read Save the Cat and I had read Elephant Bucks and sort of followed, those formulas to sort of create the whole series. But then after season 1, because it got picked up by Elizabeth Banks's company, then they had pointed me in the direction of a Sundance Lab, and I ended up getting in. And then that's really the first time that I really studied writing, like script writing seriously. And it was awesome. And especially like serialized TV writing.
And that's where you developed season 2 of the series, is it not? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there I had like amazing mentors, Katie, of course, and and different eyes on my script as well, helping bringing it along, because I had also just had a baby, so I was way more tired. I didn't have as much time.
Just had a baby on top of all that. I am curious what advice you have for filmmakers who are going down a similar path and trying to get a series made. I'm very curious. What advice you have there? Like things that you might have learned during the process, things maybe you wouldn't repeat or things that you would definitely do again.
I would just say, sometimes I feel like there is so much advice swirling. And I loved this thing that Naomi Snikas said once to me. And it was like, I don't have any advice, just like keep going. I know how hard it is and understand how hard it is for everybody. Like getting that yes is so difficult, and just one foot in front of the other, try your best to just keep going. If you believe in your idea, hopefully someone else will too. And the no's are part of the process, like as painful and as annoying it is, and to try to be patient with yourself as well. And it's hard. It's like, you all know, like getting anything made is a miracle. So go easy on yourself.
Yeah, it's incredible
because
you went through such a intensive process, getting this thing made and wearing so many different hats. What were some of the biggest challenges playing actor, director, creator, like all on the same project? Like, what were some of the challenges that posed for you?
Well, I should point out that also Lindsay McKay also directed a ton of the episodes. And I think in the first season, she directed over half. And then second season, because I had the kid, I only directed 2 episodes. So it wasn't, I still had Lindsay there. And Lindsay would, so she would always do the first few days so I could like ease into it. Like we would arrange the schedule so that I wasn't like directing myself on day 1.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. And got a second to adjust. I weirdly find directing myself easier in a way. It's like, oh, one less person I have to communicate with. I also had
She gets me. She just does.
Oh, great. She understands my language. Perfect. Okay, let's look at playback. And also, us, we've been self-taping for years. So it's like I'm very used to looking at myself and looking back at, like, noticing in the take what I could improve upon or what I liked. And then you just sort of adjust it from there. We hired a stand-in, so that was helpful so I could look at the monitor as much as I could. I also always had Katie and Lindsay on set to also be eyes if there wasn't enough time for playback. I would trust my cinematographer as well. It's like, yeah, it was really fun.
So how did, other than you taking a little bit of a step back from directing, having the baby, how did that change your world? Because you were already doing it, so at least, I mean, everything. But, because you had already established at least one season, there was a flow, you get your funding. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that sort of transition.
To be honest, I don't remember a ton. I now look back and I feel like it was a crazy ass thing to do. I kind of can't believe my younger self at times, and I definitely would not recommend that or do it again because I had put a lot of pressure on myself when I found out I got pregnant. I think I had this really big fear that I would be forgotten by the industry, that I would cease to exist if I took, forbid, 2 months off, putting my foot on the gas pedal. I was probably really tired, and that's probably why I don't totally remember a lot. Like, she's in the series, like, she plays the baby in the abortion clinic. And we're in, like, the family planning clinic. And so I'm like, wow, so she was on set with me. I remember, what was so great about Babe Nation? We supplied nannies. Anybody who was a mom got childcare.
Amazing.
Hannah, who was our production designer, like, she had just had a baby as well. So I wasn't alone. And then we had this great nanny that we hired. And so she brought her to set once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what I'm hearing is it's a crazy ask, and you felt a lot of pressure to keep going. Even in hindsight, you would have loved to, maybe ease up a little bit and enjoy your time, but you did it because we are capable of really hard things. And what became of it? You had a lot of support. You were able to figure out a way to also support somebody else on set who is in a similar situation, and you came up with solutions and a great second season.
It's also a very common fear, I think, for a lot of women who are having kids in this industry, that they fear that, when you said, like, you feel like your career's out the window all of a sudden. It's like, well, if I leave for 2 months, like, do I suddenly become irrelevant? So it is a challenge that I think a lot of women face in this industry with, the idea of having kids, not having kids. I mean, obviously it's possible, but it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's really difficult, and especially if you're working on a really intense project, the hours are nuts, right? Like, you can be on set for 14 hours a day, and it's definitely challenging. So I love that idea, like what Babe Nations did with the nanny. Like, that's so great. We need more of that. We need to be thinking about working parents and the challenges it is, because the industry is not set up for the hours are not set up for parenting and
parents.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
100%. I was working,
or even just like regular balance.
Yeah,
right. Some of these hours, it's just like, I don't think anybody should be working 14 hours a day.
Yeah, there is no balance. I think I got to be a part of this think tank called, it was brought to you by Balancing Act, but I believe it was called Level Up. And it was they've done incredible work addressing the issue of women or caregivers in the entertainment industry. Because it's like our jobs are really different. I think people who have civilian jobs maybe don't appreciate the amount of work that has gone into making that world a bit more equitable. And so now we're working towards making our industry a bit more equitable for those who are also caregivers, because it is no joke. It's even just little things, that I feel like people don't think of. It's like, yeah, I would love to go to an industry mixer on a Sunday afternoon where kids are not invited. It's like, no, it's not going to not going to happen. That's not stuff like that. Like always drives me nuts. I'm like, you're not thinking about
Yes.
the parents here. Then like,
No.
I've got 5 birthday parties and a swim lesson to go. Like, it's not happening. Like, so
And then
18 plus, cool.
Yeah.
And God forbid your kids are doing extracurriculars too, because then you've got that in the mix. It's like, how am I supposed to be 43 people at once? Like, I just can't. You can't.
Uh,
It's
Dude, don't
insane.
don't even get me started. It's wild.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna circle back a little bit, and then I want to get more into your directing. But just the Sundance and industry, the Sundance Fellowship. I wanted to talk. I know that you're also a mentor now and advising other emerging creators. Is that right?
During the pandemic, I was an advisor for one of the writing classes, and
Okay, amazing.
that was amazing. It was great. I got to, meet all these students from around the world and help them with their script. But the course was led by Angela Lamanna, and so I was an advisor within the pilot writing course.
So I guess this one's specific to writing. Curious if there's a common mistake that maybe emerging creators make, or one that you've made yourself that you try to advise up and coming filmmakers or creators what to think
Yeah.
about.
Yes, I know exactly. I feel like this is always a note. Make it worse. I love artists so much. I love writers. They're such good people, and so you're almost like being too empathetic towards your characters and are trying to make it easy. It's like, no, man, put your character through the ringer and then see their fabulousness emerge through very difficult circumstances. Like sometimes it's like, I'm like, you just set up such a good challenge and then gave them like the door out. I'm like, no,
Right.
make it worse. Make it worse. Especially in comedy, like that's where the hilarity ensues as well, is when like put your character through the ringer. That's what I would say. Make it worse.
Yeah, like because it's so much juicier to watch the conflict and how they get out of the conflict. I love that. That's great
Yeah.
advice. You've directed a number of well-known, established Canadian television series, as previously mentioned. What was the biggest challenge stepping behind the camera, this time not on your own project?
Yeah. I mean, each show is a new thing, but the first time I was so nervous. Like it hankered back to that it like brought me back to little like 19-year-old Vanessa on her first TV credit. Like I had to really psych myself up. Like these were the words that were going through my head. And I was like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I challenge myself like this? This was the stupidest idea you ever had. I regret every single decision that led up to this moment. Like, that's how terrified I was. I was like, I want to but again, like, it's so crazy. I always go back to improv, but I feel like, because that's also a similar feeling every single week I had right before going on stage for an improv scene. I was like, I want to run to the exit. This is the opposite of what I want to do. But, I would force myself to get up on stage and then, of course, have like the best time of my life. And so I think I had that muscle memory of, remembering that. Like, as soon as I get on stage, I'm going to be happy and fine. And that has always also been really true for directing. Like, the second I step on the plateau and everyone's there, it's it kind of just like, I don't know. It's like the anticipation is worse than the doing. The doing is actually quite joyful for the most part.
I feel like I'm always like so scared.
I was
before
just
show up
saying
on
the same
set.
thing before,
Yeah.
just moments earlier, where I was like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I do this? As artists, I think we do that to ourselves because we're constantly challenging and we're constantly trying to grow. And, the idea gets put in us. And we're like, let's do it. And we muster up all this courage. But then, like, it's sort of like right before you hit that edge, it's like, did I make the right decision?
Totally.
But it's the conquering. It's the conquering of it, I think, is the payoff.
Totally. And also not to ignore my like life coach talks about this, but those are like micro tears, what you're doing. It's so essential and it's so important to challenge yourself in those ways and to just face it and do it anyway, because that's actually how you become like a confident person and how you can step into your leadership and not play small. Like, don't it's so in this way. Like, I try to also psych myself out and remind myself, like, this is good for me. Like, I am micro tearing right now. Like, this is, like with because it goes back to like muscle building. Like, to physically grow muscle, you have to, it gets like broken. That's why you're sore, and then it heals, and then you get a bigger muscle. So it's very similar when, you're challenging yourself and putting yourself in these new crazy positions that we do. It's not for the faint of heart.
But that's where the growth happens, right? That's where the growth happens. Because once you get through one experience, then you're like, okay, I did that and I didn't die and I survived it. And I actually did a pretty good job. There's things I would change. There's things I would do differently.
Right.
But I'll just bring that into the next thing. And you'll also be terrified when you do the next thing for different reasons or the same. I don't know. It's like, that's exactly it. That's where you grow, and and that's when experience starts to set in.
Also, we are so lucky working in film that it's such a massive collaboration. Like, that's the other thing I try to remind myself when I'm directing on a new set or with new people. It's like, there's a lot of people who want to do their best work. So, they're not going to let you, if you miss something, you've got your scripty there is going to remind you that you weren't crazy about that angle. Like, just have a quick chat with your cinematographer. Like, you've prepped all this great work with your production designer and your costume director. Like, we are really lucky to be in this really collaborative environment of people who really are working at the top of their game. Like, if you are able to work in like at the level of TV, these people are very accomplished. It's a real privilege, to get to step into these spaces as a guest director. I feel very lucky.
Yeah, that's
100%.
amazing. And speaking of growth and, taking what you learned and applying it. So you had another web series that you worked on, How to Fail as a Pop Star. So how was that different? I guess was there anything different that you sort of like took what you learned and then applied?
Yeah, that one felt really different. It was created by Vivek Shreya, who I adore. We're actually having lunch this week. I'm so excited to see her. And she, she's such a singular artist. I love so much about her. I learned so much from Vivek. She really, I think my biggest takeaway from my time with Vivek was and this is also something that I work on as a director too, and I'm sure you all can relate to this, but I had, that little voice inside of you that's like, I didn't like that, or like, I think we should go again, but I don't want to upset people. I used to ignore that little voice a lot. And it's always my mantra that it's like, do not ignore that little voice because you will regret it in the edit room. And something that Vivek is so good at is just with a lot of grace and compassion, like voicing her concerns. And so that was like a really powerful thing to just be around. It's like somebody who is like, these are my concerns, take it or leave it. It was also a different experience because it was my first time working with Sphere as a director. And they were just, that's like an amazing team to be surrounded by, so many great minds who are developing the script alongside Vivek. And then also we were working with the CBC as well. So you're also getting network notes. If I'm a guest director on TV, I'm not necessarily getting the network notes to me. Like, that'll go to the showrunner or the writers. It's not me as the guest director, but because I was doing, the full thing, you're balancing a lot of voices and a lot of input. And I guess the collaboration was greater. And, it was like it was a tight budget. It was also like, I want to say it was the tail ends of COVID. Like, it was still COVID too. So that, all the challenges and working with these beautiful teens who had just been in the pandemic. So I think there were a lot of these factors that I hadn't encountered before. Like, I was working with my teenagers who had just been in lockdown for like 2 years. So, the teen years are already like tricky. And so they were coming out of that. And so it was pretty wild. It was a lot of fun.
How involved were you in the casting process of that?
Yeah, very.
Casting the teens.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was I was very involved. That was nice too, because I also served as executive producer, which I loved because you just have a bit more say and control. And I was very involved.
Vanessa, you also you have your feature film directorial debut, Midnight at the Paradise, which is now available on Paramount Plus. And what was the leap from sort of directing, web series, TV, short form content into like a feature? Was there a leap there to be made? And what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, the biggest leap I've ever taken in my life. Like, that was the hardest thing. Also, look back, I'm like, what were you thinking? Like, thank God we don't know sometimes what we're getting into before we get into it, because that was also crazy. That was shot in deep pandemic. Like, I want to say 15 or
Oh,
I can't even
boy.
remember. And it's a romance, so there's a lot of kissing, and
Oh my gosh.
so just on that
Oh,
level,
wow.
it was kind of stressful. And we had elders with us, and so I was very scared of them catching COVID. I'm laughing not because it's not funny, but it was just it was so
It was crazy.
stressful. It was so crazy. That was wild. Like that one really came out of nowhere. It was so one of my best friends, Leanne Balaban, had been attached to this film, and she suggested to the producer that I might be like a good director. And then, unbeknownst to me, he and to her as well, he was like a really big fan of Ghost BFF, like knew about it and felt like it was really interesting, and then didn't connect until like our first coffee meeting that I was also the girl in The Bitter End, which he also loved in like the aughts when that came out, and was like, wait, that's the same person. Anyway, so I did not think it would get greenlit. And a lot of my mentors were like, well, I don't know, if someone is offering you your first feature, you just say yes. And I was like, yeah, yes, never
Yeah.
thinking that this would get fine. And then it did. And then I was like, fuck, I need to learn how to direct like right now. So took a Sundance directing course, read as many books as I could. I tried really hard to shadow. I had never shadowed before. And I mean, even though I had had this, 20 years of experience at that point of being in front of the camera, and I was always that
Mhm.
like nerdy, annoying actor who's like at the monitor. And like, I was really obsessed with directors, even when I was acting. Like, I loved, especially when I got like a female director, it was really meaningful to me. And I would always hang out at the monitor, and they would like be like, oh, do you want to watch? And like bring up a chair for me.
Oh.
So I was always watching them direct, and then you know how you're probably doing this too, but you take the mental notes of like the good directors and the bad directors, and you do sort of like it all accumulates of like you learn so much from the bad ones because you're like, this I would never do. So I felt like I knew like the acting side of directing, like I knew how to, like that was a language I was very comfortable like being with actors, but learning, the language of the camera was new for me. So that's what I tried to focus my learning on, and had a really experienced cinematographer, and we worked really close together, Jason Tan. So that was really helpful. It was only one camera as well. So even though that sounds harder, it was actually a good entry point because I only had to focus on one camera. When you go into multicam,
Yeah.
start directing for TV, it like that first experience, I was like, oh my God, how am I supposed to look at two monitors and like figure this out?
That's a really good point. I didn't even consider that until you mentioned it. My God. So how do you do that?
Yeah, you look at both cameras, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, your DP also helps you. Like sometimes I'll
Right.
think, like I'm like, I think the camera's going to go here and here, and then the DP's like, nah, I think B cam needs to go here, not there, and I'm like, yeah, fair. So I always, even sometimes I have like jokes with my cinematographer of like my idea of where B cams should go, in conjunction with my shot list. So yeah, sometimes if there was, if it's a more, when I know I'm going to definitely use the close up for this moment, obviously I'm looking at my close up camera. Like I'll be,
Right.
and if I'm still working out my master, then I'm going to focus more on that. And then usually you're going to go again. So then I'll keep an eye on the other one. Or sometimes your scriptie will notice something that I wasn't seeing in A cam. So she'll mention, oh, this in B cam. So then I'll like take a peek at that one.
Right.
But also some great advice that I got once from a Sundance director mentor was that don't get too addicted to the monitors, because you can miss some gold that's happening outside the monitor. So I always try to like not look at the monitor. Even, like I'll look at almost like
Exclusively.
Exclusively, exactly. Like I'll look at it almost like a play, and so keep an eye like on the reverse. That actor was doing something really funny. Like I want to make sure that I get that. Like don't get too addicted to the monitors.
I was just going to say, I love how that story, like you made a fan from, Bitter End to the Ghost BFF, and how it served you literally decades later.
I know, it's crazy.
Is
you
amazing.
Never know. You never know.
Yeah.
That's something too that when like young actors want to talk to me, like and it's like you're never auditioning for what you're auditioning for. Always do your best. Try to be as graceful as possible, even when you get those no's, because you don't know, and you really don't. You don't know what is going to happen in 10 years. It's weird. Like, do any of us know the world would be what it is now? Like, no, this was a surprise.
Wild.
So,
Yeah.
it's
so true. So, what advice do you have for young artists out there today who might be struggling, are trying to break through, advance their careers?
I mean, can I say this first? That I do want to just recognize it's so different for people coming up now than when I was coming up. And I do feel like a great book to read is Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. It's so much harder coming up now than when I was coming up. Like, first of all, even just the economics of it all. Like, I come from a pretty poor family, but was able to sort of eke my way out as an artist in part because rent was so cheap in the year 2000. Like, my apartment in Montreal was $300. Like, that is just not the reality. So, and then also just like the timing of my web series, it was a really exciting moment, and that moment has shifted. And at the same time, there are these other tools at your disposal that like we didn't have. Your network is so important. The people that you're coming up with matter more, and making as many relationships and connections as you possibly can. I need actors that I can trust when I'm on set. Your connections do matter. Like, you know, go see your friend's film. Go support the people in your cohort. Don't lose touch with if you got accepted into a lab or whatever, like the people that you're coming up with, it's not a ladder. It's like a pyramid. Like, you're all kind of, or like a silo. Like, you're all coming up together. And don't ignore that network that you have around you. I think your friends and your community is like essential.
Yeah, I totally agree. Community is so important in this business. And it's also what keeps you going. Sometimes when you're feeling down or you're feeling like you're just like, sometimes it's those people that are in your corner that are just reminding you to keep going, or let's work on something. Well, let's make something. It's so important to have those people around you.
Yeah. And you rise up together rather than trying to network up. You're always going to feel less than, right? If you're trying to get Steven Spielberg to notice you, you're always going to feel like nothing. But if you are, rising up with your peers, it's a lot more fun.
Absolutely. And also, like, watch the shows, stay informed. Like, that's like an easy, free thing to do. Like, watch the shows on CBC Gem that you're auditioning for, like, understand the tone, like, do your homework before the assignment even comes. Like, because then you're going to be really well informed when that opportunity does show up. Like, learn about the Canadian filmmakers that are inspiring you. Try to go see theater every once in a while. Don't delay your life. You do still have to live your life. Like, go, like, I think when I was younger too, I was always afraid to like take that trip because I was like, what if I miss an audition? And, and now that I'm older, it's like, oh, I'm so glad I backpacked Thailand. Like, because that is just not gonna happen now. And I'm glad I didn't delay my life. I'm so grateful for my daughter. I'm glad like I did it, even though I was super scared. Don't delay your life. Still live your life.
Yeah, and life informs art. So, all of those experiences will inform your work and bring more depth to it. So I think that's really great advice. When you hear the phrase hitting her mark, what does that mean for you? And it basically, how do you define success in your life, personally, professionally?
God, great question. I try not to put too much pressure on myself success-wise anymore. Or not anymore, but like instead I look at things like learning marks. What are a few more people's names I can learn? What is one more thing I can learn about this lens or this camera? What's one more so that I just keep learning instead of I think I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to like succeed and be showy. What can I learn?
I love that. That's such a great answer.
Good. No pressure. Like, don't have to hit the mark every time.
Like, just really taking the pressure off yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that's also when like the best work happens. It's not when you're like muscling it to like squeeze it out.
Yeah. Finding some ease. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like with my daughter, I noticed that like if she's in a good place, like she can actually learn. Like, it's like your brain can absorb. If you're really tightening and muscling, it's like the flow's not there and the best work doesn't happen. So I think, like get rest, eat nutritious food, breathe, and, take the pressure off.
Yeah.
So
Life's
great.
too short.
Yeah, 100%. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. You've been a wonderful guest and really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much. Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you both.
Thanks for tuning in to Hitting Her Mark. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. For more content and updates, follow us on Instagram at Hitting Her Mark.